Well, here's a introduction video of sorts, I guess. I'm gonna try to start getting some videos out. I really wish I would have videotaped, did some filming on when I was building this car. Um, but I'll be pulling the motor out here soon enough to do a little bit more work on the top end, so we'll be able to see a lot more stuff going on when I get into that. But thought I'd just make a video here, just kind of introduce the cars. The two cars we'll be primarily kind of working on here for a little while on the channel. I'm going to start trying to get built up. Got an Instagram page and quite a few people asking me how I got this set up. You know, I can take all kinds of pictures, and you can only do short little spurt videos on Instagram, so that's why I decided to go on the YouTube and try to make some longer, a little bit better videos. I did buy a actual camera, but it's in the house charging, and I forgot to buy a memory card for it. Imagine that. And since I live out here in the sticks, it's not like something I can just go drive and go buy real quick. It'll be another trip to town for me to go buy a memory card for it. So just make a quick video on the phone. It's probably, you know, be not the greatest of quality, but I'll try to do my best here. So anyways, so this is the 1968 AMX that I dug out of a field in the spring of 2017. And all this car was just a shell. It didn't have doors, it didn't have any glass, didn't have a dash. It had part of a 390 in it, but I'll get to that here in a little bit. It didn't really have much paint on it, didn't have any emblems on it. It did have these tail lights on there, and they were fair enough. Well, they weren't on it, they were in the trunk. Didn't have any bumpers, didn't have a lower valance. It did have the suspension. It did kind of roll. It did have the factory 4-piston Bendix calipers and disc brakes on it. They were pretty rusted out, but it did have them. It did have this grill thrown in the car. It's a little broken, but gets the job done, and it's not broken enough for me to complain too much about it. It didn't have fender extensions. It didn't really have a front bumper. This is a different front bumper that's in a little better shape than what was quote unquote kind of with the car. It has a vacuum operated windshield wiper setup that doesn't really work. But, so pretty much anything in the interior, door panels and stuff, are handmade, because it didn't have any of that stuff. The back area of the car, I just threw some speaker carpet and put those little straps on there just to kind of mold everything the best I could. Get you back there. And that was kind of what I imagined it looked like. I didn't have anything to go off of. The dash is out of a parts Javelin that was, sadly enough, laying next to this car out in the field where I found it. There was kind of a part of a dash in the AMX. We can't really see good, but the factory dash on this car didn't have a spot for the VIN number or VIN plate there. This dash was out of a 69 Javelin, and it had that spot. So the little number badge in the center console was actually laying in the floorboard of this car. So I do have that, and that's the number it says that it is, but let's see, this camera's kind of out of focus. There we go. So the dash is just kind of cobbled together because it was all broken and beat up anyways. This was a 390 floor shift automatic car. There was a transmission in it, but it wasn't any good. There were no seats in it. I don't know where these seats came from, but they were in that 69 Javelin. They do fit. They bolt right in. There's some sort of AMC seat. And they're not in real good shape, but they get the job done. A little bit more on that handmade door panel there. We did have the metal tops of some rotten door panels that we took and removed the staples and put kind of a board, like a 1/4 inch type of plywood type of stuff behind there, and just went to our fabric store and got some kind of vinyl stuff and wrapped them in that, and it came out pretty good. I'm happy with it. It does the job. I did get new weather stripping from I believe it was American Parts Depot. I did do that. These little wing windows, I did find another source for those. He had 2 of them, so I got lucky on that. These doors came off the Parts Javelin that was laying in the field. The door glass actually came from the same source I got the little quarter windows from. I don't know if there's a difference in Javelin and AMX door glass, but there might be. The windshield was fun to buy. It took about 6-7 weeks to get one, and it was kind of pricey, but did get one. The back glass came out of the Parts Javelin car, and most of the trim came from the Parts Javelin car. I had found all the trim for the AMX through various places, except for these little quarter strips. I don't have either side of those, but I do have, I think, just about all the trim for this car. There was one 390 badge laying in the trunk of this car, but the trunk lid came off a Javelin. So most everything I salvaged for this car came off of a junked out Javelin car sitting next to it, which was kind of sad. It was a 343 car. The Javelin car was. This was the 390X VIN code car, and a lot of people are upset about the supercharged LS swap into this, but you know, this car was sitting in the field for 20 years with no hood, no intake, no carburetor, and no valve covers, and we get a lot of snow and a lot of rain, so that motor was froze and busted in just about every sleeve. But a guy from Washington did buy what was left of the crankshaft and rods and salvaged a few other little parts off of it, so what was salvageable did get taken and got put to some good use. Just this car was so far gone when I got it, there was just no way I was going to be able to restore the car, so that's why I chose to go this route and just make kind of a fun drive around car. And we drive this car a lot. We've put in just a year and a half it's been on the road, we've put in about 8,500 miles on it. We've driven it to Spokane from our house, which is about a 9-hour drive. We've driven it long road trips. We'll get in it and go do a 500-mile round road trip with it, and it's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy the car. And I've had some other people ask me why put an LS in this car, you know, why not put a Hemi, or why not just go find another AMC motor and do it. Well, AMC motors aren't super duper common over here, and they're really expensive to get fixed and rebuild and all that other stuff, and parts are really hard to get at the parts store for AMC motors. And I know nobody actually knows who I am, but I've had a lot of AMCs. I was always true to the AMC, keeping the AMC V8s and 6 cylinders running in those cars, but it's very expensive, and you know, never had enough faith to drive the cars real super far. Not like I can get in this car and just drive it. I mean, even being 500 plus horsepower, you can get in this car and just drive it like a daily driver. You'd never even be concerned about it, quit running or anything and leave you stranded. But the reason I put an LS motor in it is because where I work, what I do for a living, we have a lot of conversion vans, and most of them are Chevys. Back when I started doing this a year and a half ago, they were all Chevys. And our vans, unfortunately, they get to where they can't be driven on the road after about 6 years of use, and they all have pretty fairly low miles on them. So I just buy the vans for scrap as soon as they're out of service, and usually you get a motor with 110, 150,000 miles on it, and there I go. I have the wiring harness, the engine, the computer, everything I need for these swaps. But now, if I'd have just waited a while, I guess I could have had a Ford drivetrain in it, because we don't have very many Chevys left at my job. We've bought all new Fords now, and so the next batch of vehicles I'll be able to salvage out will be Ford drivetrains, and I know nothing about that. And quite honestly, I knew nothing about LS's, how to wire them or anything until I took this on. I always just stuck with carburetors and stuff like that, and never had a real interest in fuel injection, never had an interest in computer controls, anything. But I am glad I got into it, and it was a lot of fun. And just nothing wrong with this engine, but I am going to be pulling it out because we're going to do a little bit more boost, but we need to put some steel head gaskets on it, and it's just a lot easier just to pluck the motor out. So this engine's installed in this car using AMC motor mounts, AMC brackets, AMC cross member, AMC radiator, AMC transmission cross member, AMC driveline. There has been no cutting, no bashing of anything to put this motor in. I can actually pull all of this back out of the car and put an AMC motor back in it if I wanted to. But I think I'll stick with this because it's a lot of fun. I did go and compete down in Bonneville Salt Flats this year, September of 2019. And this car, within 2 runs, we were into the 130 club, and that's the hardest club they have. The standing mile to do 130 miles an hour twice in a row. Well, you have 6 runs to do it, but you have a qualifying run, which they calibrate your speedometer, and then you have 5 runs to do 2 runs at anything over 130. And we did our qualifying run, and both our next runs were well over 130. So this car did real good. It's got 308 rears in it. It's using a factory AMX Positrack rear end in it. I did nothing to modify the rear end at all. It's using a factory suspension, factory brakes. I pretty much just figured out how to install this LS without cutting the car up, because I didn't want to do that, but the car is pretty, was missing a lot of stuff, so. Not much in the trunk. Sometimes my trunk light works, sometimes it doesn't. But anyways, I did have to put the battery in the trunk for drag racing and stuff, and we do quite a bit of drag racing with it. And I probably won't get to that sticker, but that's a sticker telling you about the Positrack system in the car. I don't know if that's factory, but a lot of people tell me it is. But what do I know? Because it was just a remnants of a shell when I got it, and I'd never seen or been close to an AMX before that time. So I'm learning a lot of stuff as I go too. And luckily for me, there was no rust, really, just some little bit of rust in the bottom of the rear quarters here. But I did buy a set of patch panels, so these are solid cut out patch panels and everything from one of the AMC places online, and that's the only thing we did to the car body wise. Other than that, we did a real cheap, quick, do-it-yourself industrial Alice Chambers orange paint job on this car. And this car was originally gold, but when it's at in the field, it was pretty close to that orange color there too. And funny enough, that Javelin in the field was a gold color also factory, so that's a little bit more fluorescent orange. But this AMX was painted kind of a big bad orange kind of color, and you can see the difference in the orange, but it didn't really matter to me at the time. Just wanted to make it look a little better, and it did, because it was rough. Most people would probably just walked away, or I don't know. But well, anyways, like I said, this is just an introduction to the car, what it is. Like I said, we do race it. We do have some sponsor names on the car. We actually have like 12 sponsors right now, so that's kind of the story on the AMX for right now, and I'll get into a little bit more stories into it as time goes on, but we'll just kind of get into it as I get into it. The Gremlin is a 71 Gremlin. It's got the cool little Gremlin mint on the fenders here. This is actually the wife's car. It's a 232 straight 6 automatic. Not in too terrible shape, but it's in a lot better shape than what it was 30 days ago when we bought it. We do have an Instagram page, so a lot of these pictures of what this Gremlin started out as and how it looked, and it didn't run. The brakes were locked up, wheels were locked up, so it actually runs and drives now. You can start it, jump in it, and go drive it down the street, and really that little 6-cylinder runs real good. I'm pretty impressed with it, and it shifts really nice, but it needs a grill, it needs a bumper, it needs some other things missing out of it, and it'll probably make people upset or sad, but the wife really wants to just do an LS swap in it also. But until we got all the parts and bits and pieces for it, we're just going to leave it alone and drive it as is until we get to that point. But I'll probably tinker on it, work on it quite a bit too, and we do an LS swap into it. Definitely make for a lot of good educational videos on it, and be able to see what I did to get my LS in here. There are kits you can buy, like a control freak suspension, engine cradle setup and stuff, but I'm kind of one of those guys that like to just build the stuff myself. I did everything on this car except sort of tuning. I cannot give myself credit for tuning the computer, doing the speed, density tune and all that, but all the wiring, all the deletes, everything, the engine, the supercharger, everything else in this car, I'll even claim my paint job, I did myself. So I even built my Bonneville Salt Flats front spoiler, and I built that out of a Javelin hood actually, and it works really good. So yeah, just a little history about the car, and obviously that's my name, and I'll get some more videos out here, and hopefully people will find some interest in it, and I hope some people learn some stuff off of it too. And so that's my goal, is to have fun, learn a little bit, and maybe inspire other people to put motors in, and not specifically LS's. I mean, if I had a Mopar engine laying around, it'd have probably been a Mopar. If I had a Ford engine laying around at the time, it'd have probably been a Ford. I mean, I'm definitely not against any motor. I mean, if I had a good AMC motor laying around, it would have probably been an AMC, but I'm glad things turned out this way, because it's a lot of fun driving this car, and this is not a car I'm worried about driving in the rain. It rarely gets washed. You know, I mean, it doesn't even have working windshield wipers. It barely has any kind of heat in it, so it's just a fun go out and autocross drag race, go to Bonneville Salt Flats and not be too concerned about it. So all right, well, this is where I'm going to sign off on this first video. I hope everybody enjoys them, and I do have an Instagram page, and I'm going to look at maybe starting a Facebook group too for people to be able to have comments and whatever too. So there's my Instagram there. So if you want to follow or take a look at any pictures, feel free. Ask any questions you want, and I'll do my best to answer them.